Nintendo and Gunpei. Oh, Nintendo and Gunpei Yuko murder conspiracy debunked. Never knew there was a conspiracy about these motherfuckers fucking dying. But let's see what the fuck they talking about. This is by Did You Know Gaming. Let's react to this.
Gunpei Yokoi was Nintendo's lead inventor since the 1960s, responsible for Game & Watch, Game Boy, co-designing Mario, and much, much more. His philosophy was combining old technology with new ideas.
Wait, that's crazy. Was Donkey Kong the original Bowser before Bowser was made? Cause Donkey pretty much doing the same thing that Bowser does whenever he sees like Princess Peach. I think that's her name, Princess Peach. Oh lord.
Much more. His philosophy was combining old technology with new ideas to make products that are affordable, innovative, and, most of all, fun. As Miyamoto put it, Yokoi made Nintendo what it is today. But in 1996, he left to start his own company and make a handheld called WonderSwan. As hardware, it was better than Game Boy in every way.
Really?
But he was killed in a car accident before it was finished.
Damn!
Many believe
Gunpei Yokoi, a brilliant tinkerer who designed the Game Boy and other products that helped transform Nintendo from a sleepy manufacturer of playing cards into a worldwide colossus in video games, was killed in a tragic accident in Japan on Saturday. The company said Mr. Yokoi, 56, was a passenger in a car that hit a truck from behind an expressway in Ashikawa Prefecture, about 215 miles northwest of Tokyo, according to a report in Yomiuri Shimbun. I'm sorry if I'm saying this shit wrong. I don't know Japanese names. A major Japanese daily newspaper. After Mr. Yokoi and the driver of the car got out to examine the damage, another car struck them, killing Mr. Yokoi and injuring the other man. He was a creative genius. Howard Lincoln, chairman of Nintendo of America, said in an interview he was a warm, friendly, and outgoing gentleman who was universally loved by all Nintendo employees. He came in contact with whatever the fuck. Holy shit.
Nintendo orchestrated the crash to maintain their handheld monopoly. One of the drivers was a Nintendo employee, after all. Some think it was a Yakuza hit job because of Nintendo's Hanafuda past. Others say instead of WonderSwan, he was murdered for Virtual Boy's failure. There's variance, but the general idea is the same, that the car accident was no accident at all. Over the past year, we made a trilogy of Gunpei Yokoi videos, his hour-long life story, another about Virtual Boy, and a finale on WonderSwan. And under all of them, we got a lot of comments saying Nintendo took him out.
He tragically died in a car accident. Seems more like he was taken out, if you catch my drift. A console worth committing murder for, according to Nintendo. Yes, Yokoi died in an accident, right? Let's not pretend Nintendo didn't kill Yokoi. Why does it sound like Yokoi was targeted by that other car? I don't know. How the fuck do you get in an accident the first time and then out of nowhere the second or another car that was just like there finishes the fucking job, like completely kills the person that created Nintendo, which is fucking crazy.
Many of them very confident it's a cold hard fact and a matter of historical record. It's a prominent theory that's been around a long time. And on a surface level, you can see how people connect those dots. Nintendo lost their console empire to Sony and couldn't risk losing Game Boy too. The company had historical links to the Yakuza, and thus Nintendo had the motive, and the Yakuza had the means and opportunity. But the more you dig into the details, the less sense it makes. Before we get into debunking, we should establish we're qualified to do so. Over the past year making those Yokoi videos, we read his 1996 autobiography and his 2010 biography with unused interviews recorded before his death. We also got consultation from the author of his French biography, Florent Gorge, who met with Yokoi's family and, in our opinion, is the best Nintendo historian out there. We read basically everything Yokoi'd ever written and every contemporary article written about him, and interviews with the staff of Koto Laboratories, the company he founded that made WonderSwan. You'd be hard-pressed to find a channel that knows more about Yokoi than we do, and we have a lot of affection and admiration for him. If there was evidence of murder, we'd be screaming it from the rooftops. We also realize this is a delicate topic, so we want to make it clear from the top. This isn't meant to be morbid or cynical clickbait. Like our Yokoi trilogy, we're not expecting a lot of views. Compared to something like Pokemon Trivia, these videos take twice as long to make and only get half the clicks. But we were inspired by Yokoi's stories and thought they were worth telling. We also think rumors about his murder are a blemish and a distraction from how he should be remembered. Other channels don't seem interested in debunking them, and since we probably have more receipts than anyone, it might as well be us. And with all that said, first we'll examine the crash itself. A lot of folks are fuzzy on the details, which is understandable since a lot of info's not online. So we had our translator in Japan get records from the National Library. First, we got the initial report from the local Ishikawa Prefecture newspaper, where the crash happened. Then, coverage from the national newspaper Yomiuri. We also got the New York Times story from their archive, and found Japanese magazines memorializing his funeral. We'll combine them, but mostly look at the Ishikawa report.
I can't read that shit, man. I can't read that shit. Somebody in chat read that shit. Cause I can't read that fucking shit. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do you a solid. I'm gonna go to Google Translate. Holy shit. Okay, I got you. It says at 7:15 p.m. on the 4th on the northbound lane of Hokuriku Expressway in Yamaguchi-cho. Oh Lord, these names. Prefecture, a collision occurred and the vehicle was I can't say that. I can't say that word. I can't say that word. It says the vehicle was subsequently reported as dead. While they were doing that, a following passenger car crashed into them, resulting in a total of three vehicles being involved in the accident. In this accident, Mr. Senpai Motobori, a company executive from Kitono, so many people. Kyoto City was taken to the same municipal hospital in that location, but at 9 p.m. he was diagnosed with traumatic shock. Shit. Seems like somebody did something to make him fucking shocked. 4 people sustained minor injuries. According to the investigation by the Highway Patrol in Ashikiwa Prefecture, the scene was a straight road with good visibility. On a railway road, a passenger car carrying company executive Etsuo rear-ended somebody in Kyoto City rear-ended the company employee Oko from holy shit, yo. That's fucking crazy, man. I'm glad Google can translate all this, cause this should go into details section.
Based on the Highway Police Patrol's investigation. We'll show the full text on screen and read the important parts out loud.
Please.
We'll also add some outside context from interviews, weather records, and so on. It happened on October 4th, 1997. Yokoi was in the passenger seat with 49-year-old Nintendo employee Etsuo Kisu on the driver's side.
Yeah.
According to Koto Labs, they went to play a round of golf. It was a Saturday with partly cloudy skies and temperatures around 70. So basically,
Perfect
two
temperature.
colleagues enjoying a day off with beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Afterwards, they were driving on the Hokuriku Expressway between 2 small towns. It's a 4-lane road with a 100 km/h speed limit. The following events occurred at 7:15 p.m. The sun set at 5:30, meaning by now it was fully dark, and the accident happened at night. Kiso rear-ended a light truck in front of him. The truck's driver was a 36-year-old office worker from a nearby city. After the fender bender, both automobiles were in the driving lane, so Yokoi and Kiso started pushing the truck out of the way of traffic and onto the shoulder. But before they could, a third car struck them from behind. The driver was a 55-year-old self-employed tourism worker from another nearby town, and his wife was in the car with him. All 5 people were hospitalized, 3 with minor injuries.
Yeah.
Kiso is described as seriously injured, with ribs and both his legs broken. Ultimately, Kiso survived, but Yokoi was pronounced dead about 2 hours later at 9 p.m.
Oh shit. Okay. Alright. Alright. Do I think it was like a called in hit or something like that? No. I don't think it's a hit. I think it was just really an unfortunate situation. Like people have died from worse. Like there's actual people who have died from like what's that Final Destination? You know the Final Destination movies? There's people who actually have died from scenarios like that. So crashing a 3-car collision crash is not the craziest thing. I'm not gonna lie.
The cause of death was traumatic shock from serious injury. The highway patrol arrived 15 minutes after the crash and closed the road for 3 hours to investigate. And it's their findings printed in the newspaper we're reading now. Now that we've established the facts, let's consider the details.
Okay.
Kiso, being a Nintendo employee, is often cited as evidence of a plot, that Nintendo arranged for the crash to happen, and it was his job to put Yokoi in the right place at the right time.
What?
From the sound of it though, they were friends, and Kiso was seriously injured too. Even if he was up for a murder, it'd be hard to believe he'd volunteer for a plan where they both get hit by the same car.
I don't know. You'd be surprised. They might pull the fucking, if you don't do this, we gonna kill your whole family type scenarios. Like, you never know. I mean, personally, I've seen enough shows to know how it goes down. You feel me? They will find a way. They will find a way. Hell, the government has found ways. Hey.
Guarantee he would survive and Yokoi would die. If he knew what was coming, presumably he'd step aside, stay in his car, or find some other excuse not to be in the line of fire. At minimum, Kiso and the third driver would need to be in on it and willing to roll the dice with life
For my safety in GTA.
and limb, which would be especially strange for the 55-year-old driver of the third car. He's a bit old to be the hammer in high-speed collisions, and if he was a hitman, why would he bring his wife along for the ride to get injured too? Hitmen usually leave their wives at home. Another consideration is that an expressway at night isn't a good place to stage a crash. It'd be difficult for the third car to predict the exact moment Yokoi would be in position, and they need to be driving by. And stopping in the driving lanes risks everyone getting hit by more cars. All that to say, the idea they were all in cahoots to kill Yokoi doesn't add up. Even if they were engaged in a murder plot, common sense dictates they would have done things differently. So it's hard to conclude they were anything but random people from nearby towns who happened to be on the same road at night and got into an accident.
That's what I'm saying.
Some might still be unconvinced, so let's examine Nintendo's supposed motives. We've heard several, so let's start with the most prominent, that Nintendo ordered the hit because Yokoi was making WonderSwan. They didn't want to lose their handheld empire, so they neutralized the threat. That doesn't make much sense either, for 3 main reasons. First of all, the other Game Boy devs that resigned with Yokoi were capable of finishing WonderSwan without him. The guy who took over, Yoshihiro Taki, worked for Yokoi since the 1970s, through the Game & Watch, Game Boy, Virtual Boy, and WonderSwan eras. The rest of the Kodo team had Game Boy,
Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy.
What the fuck is a Virtual Boy? Hold on, we need to do our fucking research on that. The Virtual Boy is a 32-bit tabletop video game console developed by Nintendo and released in 1995. Marked as the first system capable of displaying stereoscopic 3D graphics out of the box. Out of the fucking box, yo. Look at this shit.
Boy and
It's like That one movie. I forgot what it was called. Holy shit.
WonderSwan eras. The rest of the Kodo team had a similar experience. As Taki put it, having spent all this time at his side, we've been imbued with the Yokoi philosophy. In that sense, WonderSwan is a condensed version of his vision. If Nintendo's goal was killing WonderSwan, they would have had to orchestrate a few more accidents. Some say Nintendo wasn't trying to stop WonderSwan, rather, death was Yokoi's punishment for trying to make it in the first place. And that brings us to our next point, that Nintendo didn't know about WonderSwan until after the crash. We covered the series of events at length in recent videos, so we'll just lay out a succinct timeline. Yokoi resigned from Nintendo in August of '96. Bandai contracted Koto Labs soon after to make WonderSwan. Yokoi died October '97. Nintendo announced Game Boy Light in February of '98. Then they announced Game Boy Color 2 weeks later. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't announce two competing Game Boy models so close together, because they'd cannibalize each other's sales. The reason they did is because it was during those 2 weeks they found out about WonderSwan. Again, we went over this with extended detail in previous videos. Long story short, they didn't think Game Boy Light could fight off WonderSwan, so they sacrificed it to go all hands on deck making Game Boy Color, about 4 months after the crash. Nintendo had big plans for the Light, but the sudden change in plans meant that fewer than 1 million were ever produced and canceling its international release. If they knew about WonderSwan earlier, they wouldn't have announced Game Boy Light.
They made a Game Boy Gold? How valuable is that now? What the hell?
In the first place. To reiterate, Nintendo couldn't have killed Yokoi for WonderSwan because they didn't know it existed until after he died. Hearing that, we expect some theorists will say maybe Game Boy Light was just a ruse, and that Nintendo actually knew about WonderSwan sooner. And that brings us to the last point we'll highlight, how Nintendo found out about WonderSwan. Because it was Bandai who showed it to them and pitched making it a Nintendo product. The two companies had similar partnerships in the past. In the 80s, Nintendo bought the rights to Bandai's Family Trainer and rebranded it as the Nintendo Power Pad. In 1996, Nintendo approved and licensed the Su-Fami Turbo, Bandai's add-on that circumvented Nintendo's own lockout chip.
Nintendo has done so much crazy shit.
There were other partnerships as well, so even if Nintendo did know about WonderSwan before Yokoi died, they could have neutralized the threat just by partnering with Bandai again. They didn't need to kill for it. But in the end, Nintendo decided to beat WonderSwan rather than buy it.
That's Game Boy Color, gotcha.
Okay, let's move past WonderSwan and look at another alleged motivation, that Yokoi got whacked for leaving Nintendo. He was too important and knew too many secrets. Sort of a mafioso, once you're in, you can never get out policy. But there were many others who left Nintendo as well. For example, Katsuya Nakagawa, an inventor, lead engineer on Famicom, and producer on Super Game Boy, who was responsible for some of Nintendo's biggest patents. He resigned the year before Yokoi and took half a dozen developers with him. We recently made a video about him too. Long story short, Nakagawa made TV game systems, a home console, and partnered with big companies, including Bandai. Nakagawa is still alive today. The guys who left with him are too, and so were the folks who followed Yokoi to form Kodo Labs. And finally, the last motivation that gets cited is that Yokoi's murder was punishment for Virtual Boy. But it wasn't his first
Motherfucker, how? How? Y'all all in the same fucking company. It's Nintendo. It's y'all. Oh my god, bro. I just don't believe that they killed each other. Like they're trying to kill like people who know too much. But this is a conspiracy theory. And if this is true, this is the wildest shit you will ever fucking know about Nintendo's history. Because what the hell?
Failure, or even his biggest. In the 1970s, laser clay shooting galleries were much more financially devastating. Nintendo was broke for years after its failure, and so deep in debt they almost got dismantled by the banks lending them money. Compared to that, Virtual Boy was no big deal. Nintendo was still in the black, profiting hundreds of millions of dollars a year. You could say Laser Clay wasn't so much Yokoi's fault as the financial downturn that interrupted it. But by that same token, Virtual Boy wasn't Yokoi's fault either. President Yamauchi ordered him to make it, then rushed it out before Yokoi thought it was ready. Nintendo made a public statement to that effect as a response to rumors that Yokoi resigned in disgrace. Quote, "It is reality that Mr. Yokoi has indeed left, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the failure of the Virtual Boy. There's no doubt that the Virtual Boy was a failure, but the head of the company himself has said that the blame for that rests on the decision to sell it to begin with. The D-pad and Game Boy that Mr. Yokoi developed are incredible. Such a man taking the blame for the 32-bit device and leaving the company is completely made up." Yokoi set the record straight with an article of his own called "Why I Left Nintendo," where he said Virtual Boy didn't have anything to do with his departure. In interviews, he said Yamauchi wouldn't have let him resign over it, even if Yokoi wanted to. That's just not how things worked at Nintendo. You win some, you lose some, and you move on. You don't get axed because of one flop. And if Virtual Boy wasn't important enough to fire Yokoi, it wasn't worth killing him for either. Truth was, there were so many reasons he left Nintendo, like creative freedom and not wanting to manage a big department anymore. Again, we covered all that in depth in earlier videos. We could go on, pulling at more threads, like how Yamauchi and Yokoi were as close as father and son, that Game Boy Color was capable of beating WonderSwan in a fair fight anyway, and that Satellaview and 64DD were even bigger flops, but the guys in charge of those projects weren't fired either, let alone murdered. But I think we've made our point. Nintendo assassinating Yokoi is only plausible if you only know the surface level details and assume the worst. But the more you learn, the less it makes sense. It's worth noting that Yokoi's wife, son, colleagues, and friends, none of them made accusations of foul play. Those claims were entirely from people on the internet. Not to sound preachy, I hope, but if someone's dedicated to a theory, they can always find excuses to ignore evidence and cook up additional theories to support the first. We're expecting some holdouts to leave comments claiming the highway police were on the Yakuza payroll and faked the investigation, that the newspapers were all lies, and Yokoi's family and friends were threatened into silence. If you're determined to believe something, no one can force you to change your mind. I think the evidence overwhelmingly supports one simple conclusion. Yokoi's car accident was just that. An accident. A million people die in car crashes every year.
True.
Sadly, Yokoi was one of them.
Unfortunately.
Fortunately, his ideas lived on, as great men's often do. In a magazine documenting his funeral, a mourner offered some insight. We'll close the video with his perspective. He said, "Nintendo has its own way known as Nintendo. It's a combination of philosophy, knowledge, and technique. Regardless of likes and dislikes, good or bad, marketable or not, Nintendo adheres to a way more than any other company." When I spoke with Yokoi, I felt a strong sense of how they Nintendo things. I realized, oh, so he's the one who created the way of Nintendo. And I can clearly see that Yokoi's DNA was passed on and inherited by both Nintendo and Koto. Dawkins says for living beings, the continuation of DNA is more important than the individual. In that sense, I hope Yokoi can rest in peace.
That's beautiful as fuck.
If you want to see our Yokoi trilogy about his life story, Virtual Boy, and his time at Koto making WonderSwan, click the video on the left. If you liked my narration of this video, my name is HBR Shredder. If you'd like to see me take...
Oh, brother has made a 2-hour and 41-minute trilogy of the Nintendo history. Holy cow. Well, that's it for Nintendo and Gunpei Murder Conspiracy Debunked. Shout out to Did You Know Gaming. This man is fucking awesome.